Hello and welcome back to Getting Handsy. So Games Workshop is suing a popular 3D model designer named Ghamak. And the question is the one in the title. Has Games Workshop gone too far this time? And the answer is yes. Yes, they have. Thanks for watching. Roll the credits. Let's go. Okay. Yeah, I'm just kidding. I think there's a bit more nuance to it than that. Now, to be upfront, I have not liked what Games Workshop has been doing for a long time now, and this is just a continuation of that. I don't like their business practices, prices, what they do to competition, things they've said, etc, etc. If it wasn't for this channel and buying that box of Cadians for that recent video, I would be at over 5 years of not giving any money to Games Workshop. But alas, I broke that streak for you all, and I won't take that back. And to be upfront on the other side of this lawsuit, I don't know if Ghamak is the best example of the creator I would want to jump behind full-throatedly. I do like their models though and have been a subscriber for a long time on Patreon and Tribes. You may have seen in my last video I'm even working on a project using some of their dwarves. But that being said, I have heard things, rumors about him as a person that aren't exactly flattering or good about things he has done in the past to other creators. I have no first-hand knowledge of anything bad about Ghamak, I'm just saying those things do exist online, so take that as you will. But in the grand scheme of things, this isn't really about him or his company. If what is being alleged by Ghamak, that Games Workshop is coming after them because of unfair competition, I think this could affect, if not outright destroy, all kinds of independent artists who create and sell things online. For example, I just printed off a phone stand for my dad's new phone. Could Samsung or Quadlock sue the designer of that just because it is unfair competition? Sure, you can try and limit it to this specific case of wargame proxies, but I don't think it will stop there, because it hasn't stopped anyone from doing this before. I also do agree that Games Workshop has the right to protect their IP through copyright. The problem with that is that Games Workshop in the recent past is known for trying to copyright generic fantasy and sci-fi terms that they didn't even create. This is a big deal in, I believe it was called the Chapter House lawsuit? If I remember correctly, Chapter House was making alternative models and Games Workshop sued them for IP infringement. In the end, I believe it was settled, so neither side technically lost, but it completely killed Chapter House, and if I remember correctly, this is when Games Workshop stopped using generic terms and started using more specific names that they could copyright. That's when we started seeing everything getting weird new names, and when they put special symbols on everything, like Astra Militarum, Adeptus Astartes, Oryx. By getting rid of those generic terms, they would be easily able to defend their more unique names. Anyway, this is bad precedent and will just open Pandora's box to anyone suing anyone else for creating anything remotely close to what they themselves have probably stolen. So let's just say I'm not exactly on the side of Games Workshop to begin with, but I would really like to actually see the lawsuit before I jump to any conclusions. If Games Workshop is actually suing over unfair competition, as was stated by Ghamak, I would take issue with that. People using proxies in their own games instead of buying your official models is not unfair competition, that's a bunch of BS. If that is actually the reason they are suing. There were a number of comments I read where there may have been some contention over the term unfair competition. Supposedly in Italy, where Ghamak is from, and where this lawsuit I presume will be handled, the term he is using could also be the same thing that they use for generic IP infringement. But that is specifically what Ghamak said they were not suing for. So if the comments are true, either there is a language barrier issue here, a misunderstanding in general, or is it just deception? Now, regarding the specific models that Ghamak makes, here's their My Mini Factory page. As you can see, they have tons of models of all sorts and varieties, sci-fi and fantasy. I think you will be hard-pressed to find even one model in the complete collection that is an exact one-to-one copy with a Games Workshop model. Does that mean that there aren't some that are very similar? No, it doesn't mean that. There are very obviously ones that are meant to be proxies for specific things. Are there some that might be too close? Maybe. But that's up to each person to decide for themselves. But the problem is, Games Workshop doesn't own armored space soldiers. Especially when all they have done is taken medieval armor and sci-fi'd it up. Add to that, all of their mechs are based on anime. All of their Marines and Guard are from Aliens and Starship Troopers. Everyone takes inspiration from something, and Games Workshop are no different. But what Games Workshop does specifically own are their names and icons. The Blood Angels, Blood Drop, and Wings stuff, things like that. The Ultramarines U, or actually, that's just the Omega sign flipped upside down, so they probably don't own that. The Aquila, well, actually that's from ancient Rome, but the double Aquila, they own that one. Yeah, that one's theirs. Oh, and one more. I saw a bunch of comments saying something to the effect of, OMG, Ghamak's trenchers are just Death Corps of Krieg. For those of you who say that, I'd like to introduce you to Europe in the 1900s, specifically 1914 to 18, something called World War I. And if you go look through any of their other regiments in the Astra Militarum, almost all of them are based on military uniforms from different countries throughout history. Now again, I'm not knocking Games Workshop for using those things as inspiration or just straight up copying them. I am, however, annoyed that we constantly have to have this back and forth where they do one thing and then attack their competitors for doing the exact same thing. Okay, one last thing I think, and it goes back to one of my previous complaints about Games Workshop. This whole situation stems from the things they do and their whole business model. If they sold their models at a reasonable price, people wouldn't be looking for alternatives. If they didn't try to use FOMO by limiting the quantities of everything so that people have to either buy from scalpers or go without, people wouldn't be looking for alternatives. If Games Workshop didn't attack and denigrate 3D printers at every turn, but instead sold them files like Mantic and other companies are doing, people wouldn't be going to third-party STL sellers to print things for their games. If Games Workshop had just charged $10 or $15 a month for, files, like a lot of other companies have done, I would be giving them tons of money. But I digress. So, back to the lawsuit, I guess. I'll put a link to Ghamak's video in the description. He has a GoFundMe in there if you want to do whatever. I don't know. You can support them or not. Doesn't really matter to me. That's completely up to you. But, my final thoughts. I hope that Games Workshop loses. Not because I believe Ghamak is some great guy or his company deserves to be saved, but because I want more miniatures, not less. I want more options for people to spend their hard-earned money on, whether that is physical or 3D printed files. And giving Games Workshop any win like this only hurts smaller creators and companies, and that leads to less cool models to go around for everyone. A lot of people commented on my Cadian video about Wargames Atlantic, and how you all love their miniatures as proxies. But what happens to those if Games Workshop wins this case? Sure, they aren't 3D models, but I can't imagine it will be good for them since they are literally direct competition, selling physical models that are similar to Games Workshop. Just some food for thought. And regarding the billion-dollar corporation who rakes in profits year after year, they aren't affected by 3D model creators or physical proxy creators at all, and they know it. This is just Games Workshop flexing their muscles on smaller companies like they always do, making those smaller teams waste all of their time and money on defending against these frivolous lawsuits, and Games Workshop deserves to be taken down a peg for that alone. Or, if you don't believe that, then maybe 3D printing is cutting into their profits more than we all think it is, and this lawsuit is not out of strength but out of fear, and they're trying to stop the hemorrhaging before it gets too late and it starts to affect their shareholders. Anyway, that's all I wanted to say. It's actually probably a lot more than I originally planned on saying. But in the end, I guess be good to each other, buy cool models, or print them, then enjoy them however you like. I won't judge. Let me know if you have any thoughts on this lawsuit down in the comments below. Also, if you like this video, please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, or follow for more. Thanks for watching.